Researchers have already uncovered unmarked graves at the 150-year-old Drybread Cemetery in rural Central Otago. Archaeologists will spend a month excavating parts of the historic cemetery, but already their work is proving fruitful. Our Otago-Southland reporter Timothy Brown has more.
Researchers began digging at Drybread Cemetery yesterday to locate unmarked graves, as the cemetery, which dates back to the gold rush, is still in use, and there's fears planned burial plots may already contain remains. But it only took researchers scratching the surface, literally, to uncover the first find.
What the strategy is that we use the digger to scrape off the topsoil, and because of differences and changes in colour of the soil, we can very quickly see where there is a grave. And so within the first 20 minutes of Tony digging yesterday, we found the first grave.
That's Professor Hallie Buckley of Otago University. She says the first afternoon unearthed 4 graves.
We've found 2 right up against the fence line, which are outside of the current plan. So there is a plan, and the 2 that we found up against the fence line are outside of that plan. So we've already discovered in half a day's work that that what was assumed is not necessarily correct.
Gold created the settlement of Drybread in the early 1860s, but it faded away about 30 years later as the diggers moved on. All that's left now is the graveyard, about 10 kilometres from Ormako in Central Otago. The cemetery is surrounded by the land of Tony Glassford, a 5th-generation farmer who also happens to be a director of the Drybread Cemetery Trust. He says burial information is lacking.
There was a fire in 1937. We were able to get physical records back, but that wasn't enough, not nearly enough.
Mr Glassford, whose relatives are buried at Drybread, says the problem is the cemetery is still in use.
We have a lot of forward-booked plots that people are not sure about whether people have been buried previously. So we need this to make sure that we have it right. We don't want to be digging down and finding a body. That would be the worst.
Little is also known about the community which supported the early settlers' existence. Archaeologist Peter Pecci, who is co-directing the dig with Professor Buckley, says he hopes to uncover more information.
Another part of the project is looking for the settlement where these people were living, where the miners came from. So I'll be heading over there and we'll be doing some work looking for that lost settlement of Drybread.
Do you have hopes for finding remnants of the Drybread settlement?
Oh, very much so, yes. The Glassfords, there's a place where they've found bottles and ceramics and some old trees, so we know that something was there.
But this is only the first part of the job. Once the dig is complete, research will continue in the lab for about a year. Dr. Charlotte King will play a big role in that, conducting chemical analysis on the remains.
I'm interested in the chemistry of people's body tissues, so the chemistry of your bones and teeth and even hair if we have that preserved. What that shows is, well, essentially all of those tissues are made up of things you're eating, things you're breathing in, where you're living when you're growing. And so those tissues preserve a signal of those things even after you have died. And so what we can do by looking at them chemically is find out where people might have been from. There's a lot we can do with chemistry and people don't necessarily realise that. All their secrets are in their bones and teeth.
Once that's complete, the bodies will be reinterred, possibly with identification. None of the marked graves will be touched during the dig. From Drybread Cemetery, for Checkpoint, Timothy Brown, TNA.